Oh, for sure. and create jobs in Illinois and throughout our nation. And whereas immigrants have provided Highland Park with unique social and cultural influence, fundamentally enriching the extraordinary character of our hometown, and whereas immigrants have been tireless leaders, not only in securing their own rights and access to equal opportunity, but have also campaigned to create a fairer and more just society for all Americans. And whereas, despite these countless contributions, the role of immigrants in building and enriching our nation has frequently been overlooked and undervalued throughout our history and continuing to the present day. Therefore, I, Nancy Rotary, Mayor of the City of Highland Park, and the City Council of the City of Highland Park, do hereby designate June 2022 as Immigrant Heritage Month and encourage all residents and local businesses to recognize and appreciate the stories of immigrants and their contributions to our community. And we'd also like to recognize all advocates for immigrant families who work tirelessly to support our immigrant community with equitable access to health care, legal representation, and education. And this evening, we're delighted to welcome Esteban Carbajal. And I don't think, is Susan coming or is she not going to make it? Okay, you're on your own. From the North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic to the podium. Would love to hear some words, Esteban. Thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you for inviting me to speak today in honor of Immigrant Heritage Month. As you know, June is Immigrant Heritage Month. During this month, we take the time to celebrate our shared heritage as an immigrant nation, highlighted by the many contributions to our communities by immigrants, and create awareness of how diversity and immigration are essential elements of how we connect with each other. At North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic, we know that every family has an immigration story or knows someone who is an immigrant. This month, we are sharing photos and stories in our website, social media, and in emails from our clients, our board, our staff, and our volunteers. Their stories remind us of the importance of providing free legal services to those facing immigration issues, from DACA renewals to deportation defense to asylum and more. The United States has more immigrants than any other country in the world. Today, more than 40 million people living in the U.S. were born in another country. The population of immigrants is beautifully diverse, with just about every country in the world represented among U.S. immigrants. Fortunately, we live in a place that welcomes immigrants, celebrates diversity, helps neighbors in need, and that includes our very own Highland Park. Thank you for the proclamation, but most of all, thank you for making sure that the work of North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic and our many partners are supported. By way of background, our organization is recognized by the Department of Justice and provides a full range of immigration legal services to eligible immigrants, including U visas, adjustment of status, DACA, asylum, and removal defense. DOJ recognition allows us to practice immigration law through accredited representatives and recognizes that the organization is qualified to provide immigration legal services through attorney and non-attorney staff members or volunteers, in accordance with federal regulations. There are more immigrants in the suburbs of Chicago than there are in the city of Chicago. North Suburban Legal Aid Clinic fills a unique gap in services as one of the few legal resources in Lake County and suburban Cook County that provides comprehensive legal services regardless of citizenship. Last year, our immigration practice served 583 clients from our communities. Additionally, in the fall of last year, we also began taking Afghan asylum cases and have already accepted over 46. With your help, we will continue to be on the front lines as we protect and defend our immigrant brothers and sisters in need. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Esteban. One more item, actually a few more items. We also recognize June 19th, 2022 as Juneteenth National Freedom Day, which commemorates the date in 1865 when, at the close of the Civil War, the brutal practice of slavery was finally ended in our country. Over time, the meaning of Juneteenth has grown to incorporate the celebration of African American history, culture, and achievements. I have one more proclamation. Whereas for 157 years, Juneteenth National Freedom Day continues to be the oldest and most recognized African American observance in the United States. also known as Emancipation Day, Emancipation Celebration, Freedom Day, Cell Liberation Day, Juneteenth Independence Day, Jubilee Day, and Juneteenth. Juneteenth National Freedom Day commemorates the survival of African Americans who were involuntarily brought to this country, stacked in the bottom of slave ships in a month-long journey across the Atlantic Ocean, known as the Middle Passage. And whereas approximately 11.5 million African Americans survived the voyage to the New World, the number that died is likely greater, only to be subjected to whipping, castration, branding, rape, tearing apart of families, and forced to submit to slavery for more than 240 years after arrival in the United States. And despite emancipation under the 13th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, they and their descendants still have not yet experienced full freedom for over 400 years, with many Americans failing to recognize that reality. And whereas Juneteenth commemorates the day freedom was proclaimed to all enslaved people in Texas by Union Major General Gordon Granger on June 19, 1865 in Galveston, Texas, more than 2.5 years after the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation by President Abraham Lincoln. And whereas today Juneteenth celebrates African American freedom and achievement while encouraging continuous self-development and respect for all cultures, and as a recognition of the many contributions that African Americans have made throughout America's history and presently, both while enslaved and liberated. And whereas Americans of all colors, creeds, cultures, genders, religions, orientations, abilities, and countries of origin share in a common love of and respect for freedom, as well as a determination to protect their right to freedom, Juneteenth completes the cycle of freedom for America's Independence Day observances, and recognizing that until we are all free, none of us are free. So now, therefore, I, Nancy Rotary, Mayor of the City of Highland Park, do hereby declare Sunday, June 19th, 2022, as Juneteenth National Freedom Day in our city, and urge all residents to join us in reflecting on this historical occasion by reading the Emancipation Proclamation. Thank you very much. Still a few more items for the report of the mayor. I'd like to report that on the 6th anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting, congressional leaders in Washington, D.C. announced that they reached a bipartisan agreement on a slate of gun safety measures, which has sufficient support to pass the Senate. This new legislation, drafted following the tragic shooting in Uvalde, Texas, includes enhanced background checks, expanded restrictions on gun ownership by domestic abusers, and funding for red flag laws, mental health resources, and safety measures at schools at the state level. Highland Park has long supported gun safety measures that protect our community, including the prohibition and possession of assault weapons and large-capacity magazines within our jurisdiction. This protects not just residents and community members, but law enforcement and first responders as well. We encourage Congress to continue to work towards bipartisan legislation that will further protect communities across the nation from gun violence. And under the city staff report, we will be hearing from our team about a number of summer events planned in the next few weeks. So that is coming up, and that is it for report of the mayor. The next item on our agenda is business from the public. This is for citizens wishing to be heard regarding items not listed on tonight's agenda. Are there any members of the public here who wish to be heard on an item not on tonight's agenda? Amanda, did you want to say something? You're just moving. Okay. You're in action. All right. We will continue on then with our scheduled business. Items 1 through 11 have been grouped together for omnibus consideration. May I have a motion to approve items 1 through 11?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions on 1 through 11?
Do we have any discussion on any of these that just passes right through?
This is your questions on number 2?
Yes.
So that is accepting the report for the year that ended 6 months ago. I know there are some questions about the budget moving forward that we will be discussing with the finance director at the time that we're discussing the budget moving forward. And I think a number of us have questions in that regard. But this is simply to accept the report for the year that ended.
That's fine.
December
As long as it's
2021.
discussion of the upcoming coming.
Yep. All right. So we have a motion and we have a second of items 1 through 11. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Tapia.
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Stone.
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg.
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman. Councilmember Littlewer.
Aye.
Mayor Rotering.
Aye. 7 ayes, no nays. Items 1 through 11 have been approved. Item 12 I wanted to read the resolution. Bear with me, everybody. Sorry about
Mayor?
this. Yes.
While you're looking at it, I just want to point something out concerning item 12.
Okay.
There was a comment that I made that should have made it into the package but didn't. The substance of the resolution will be as you read it, but the title, it says a resolution requiring IDOT to immediately resolve noise complaints. We, as a city, cannot require IDOT to do anything. We can urge, we could request. So I suggested a different adjective, urge, resolution urging or requesting, but that's up to you. Anything but requiring.
Absolutely. Thank you for that clarification. And so regarding item 11, I am basically seeking approval of the following resolution, not requiring but requesting IDOT to immediately resolve noise complaints generating from Route 41 rumble strips. And I think it's important, just as brief background, to note that we have been asking for IDOT and for our state legislators who are representing us to address this pretty much since these rumble strips were installed in 2019. We have called, we have held meetings monthly, we've written letters to the governor, and so at this point, my understanding is that there will be action taken at some point during this summer. Am I correct, Ramesh?
That is correct, Mayor. At the last meeting, they mentioned that they are planning to remove like 5 of the 25 strips, but the residents and city do not feel that that is enough or that is moving in fast to actually reduce. So, and then they're going to plan to do another sound report, which again further delays the actual need to get, take immediate action. So that's where we're trying to get this resolution to send it to the governor.
Right. And so to that end, I mean, it's ridiculous that we're 3 years into the situation. It's ridiculous that they haven't addressed the situation. And so there are all sorts of ways that people are trying to get this taken care of. But at the moment, I'm requesting formal action, at least in the form of a resolution, and I'll read the resolution as follows. Whereas Illinois Route 41, also known as Skokie Highway, is under the jurisdiction and control of the Department of Transportation of the State of Illinois, IDOT, and whereas many years ago, IDOT installed transverse rumble strips on Route 41 south of its intersection with Park Avenue West to warn motorists traveling northbound on Route 41 of the approaching signalized intersection with Park Avenue West. And whereas the original rumble strips installed within Route 41 were to generate minimal noise to the surrounding neighborhoods in the vicinity of Route 41, and whereas in 2019, without any notice to the city of Highland Park or to the public, IDOT repaved Route 41 and installed replacement rumble strips. And whereas the noise from the new rumble strips is audible within 5 miles, I'll repeat that, 5 miles of either side of Route 41, and negatively impacts the quality of life for city residents and businesses. And whereas IDOT has reported to the city that the rumble strips are required for public safety purposes, although there have been no fatalities at the intersection of Route 41 and Park Avenue West in the last 20 years, and no notable increases in traffic accident history. And whereas the rumble strips installed within Route 41 are the only rumble strips of their type and design in the state of Illinois, except for certain rumble strips installed in the vicinity of O'Hare International Airport. And whereas the United States Department of Transportation reports that states generally resolve rumble strip noise concerns by limiting their use in residential areas, and the Federal Highway Administration has stated that the rumble strips installed by IDOT are not ideal for urban areas. And whereas the Illinois Center for Transportation report on the effectiveness and external noise of transverse rumble strip designs dated March 2022 and commissioned by IDOT reported that the baseline noise level while driving over pavement without rumble strips averaged 63 decibels, while driving over the rumble strips averaged 74 decibels, thereby confirming significant noise pollution generated by these rumble strips in the affected area of the city. And whereas on August 6, 2021, Highland Park Mayor Nancy Rodering sent a letter to Governor Pritzker and IDOT Secretary Osmond urging an immediate solution to address the excessive noise caused by the rumble strips within Route 41 of the city. And whereas after more than a year of facilitating intergovernmental cooperation with IDOT and state officials, IDOT has not implemented any solution to the noise pollution affecting Highland Park as a result of the new rumble strips installed within Route 41. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of Highland Park, Lake County, Illinois, as follows. The foregoing recitals are incorporated into and made part of this resolution as findings of the City Council, The City Council hereby urges IDOT to prioritize the resolution of the noise pollution problems and concerns caused by the rumble strips installed within Route 41 in the city, and to take immediate and comprehensive steps to mitigate the excessive noise, either by removing the existing rumble strips or taking other action that will ameliorate the negative impact of the rumble strips on residents and businesses within the city. The city clerk is directed to transmit an executed and sealed copy of this resolution to the Governor of the State of Illinois and the Secretary of the Illinois Department of Transportation and all members of the Illinois General Assembly representing any portion of the city. This resolution will be in full force and effect upon its passage and approval by the majority of the members of the City Council. We're trying, and it's ridiculous, and so I am seeking a motion to approve this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
We have motions, we have seconds. One of our voters ran off sneezing. Will the clerk please call the vote?
Councilmember Tapia?
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg?
Yes.
Councilmember Stone?
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman? Councilmember Littlewer?
Aye.
Mayor Rotering?
Aye, 7 ayes, no nays. We will be forwarding this resolution to the governor et al. Thank you very much. The next item is consideration of a Plan and Design Commission recommendation for a plan development with variations in plat of consolidations at 1950 to 1964 Sheridan Road. Director Fontaine is here.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a presentation for you this evening. Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have for you a presentation of mandated development, Sheridan Road, 1950 to 1964. It's a plan unit development with modifications, design review, a plat of consolidation with a variance, and a consideration of an amendment to Chapter 77 related to the adjacent alleyway or the on-street traffic regulations for that way. Staff recommends that the council consider the preliminary and final plan unit development, as mentioned earlier, with modifications, and an amendment to Chapter 77 regarding the on-street traffic regulation. For you tonight is a consideration and directing staff to draft approval documents with conditions as you see appropriate, if appropriate. So that's the item here this evening. So to summarize, the project is going to demolish existing buildings on site. It consists of these two properties, as you see there in the picture. It's taken some time to assemble these properties, but we were happy to see that happened, and Fulton Developer was able to do that. We had others in the past had been trying, but were unsuccessful. So it does make for a better development site with those two properties, no doubt. So from a staff perspective, we were very happy to see that. So the project is a 4-story, 20-unit multifamily building with underground parking, garage, and some surface parking on the alley. Property is in the B5 Central Business District and is within the Central District Residential Overlay. As you may recall, that allows an entirely residential building, which is proposed. So the Plan and Design Commission conducted 3 public hearings. Wow, that is better, isn't it? I was saying, hey, I sound muffled, and then I said, oh, I've got this thing on. So the PDC conducted 3 public hearings, March, April, and May. And on May 17, 2022, they recommended approval 6-0 with conditions. The conditions are as follows. 1, the applicant must come to agreement with Public Works regarding changes to the alleyway and improvements. Resolution. The City Council to consider the alleyway request. The Traffic Management Committee recommended the applicant's proposal to change to a one-way south to Park Avenue. There are some other staff comments that we'll get to in a moment, but that one was addressed in that way. Two, the second condition from the Plan and Design Commission was that the applicant verify screening of rooftop mechanical equipment. The applicant did do that through an exhibit. Three, the applicant must further clarify their proposed public benefit. Information was provided, and there's a PowerPoint slide that we will go through about just that. So in terms of staff comments, as you saw, the Plan and Design Commission did mention about Public Works comments. There were some comments that were outstanding. One with the alley was resolved in terms of the direction through the Traffic Management Committee, but Public Works does have these outstanding comments. The population equivalent calculation was not provided. Developer should bury the overhead utility lines, and the developer should resurface and widen the alley with new curb and gutter. And lastly, the developer should resurface Park Avenue. So there are some points of disagreement between staff and the developer on those lines, and I'll turn over to the developer to talk about those after my presentation and at your direction, Mayor.
Councilmember Stone has
Yes.
that last slide.
Yeah, on comment 4, the developer should bury the overhead utility. I wanted to ask a little bit more about this because the developer is asking for a waiver of that.
Yes. Actually,
and-
relief from that, not just a
Okay,
waiver.
I'm sorry, relief.
Yeah.
And this is something that seems to be continually waived, or relief we seem to always grant. And if this is a priority to the city, I wanted to just see whether there's something else that we can do to make this feasible going forward.
Okay.
And perhaps that's a question you need to answer later.
We
but
do
I
not have a
wanted to
response
bring it
for
up.
that tonight, but I do concede the point that you're making. Council has granted variations in the past due to the inordinate costs associated with this type of burial of utilities. I'll let the applicant speak for himself about what those are and why he's not able to do that at this time. Okay.
Councilmember Littlewer also has a.
Yes.
I actually had a very similar question to Councilwoman Jones, and my question is, only because I'm not familiar with this, have we in the past consistently let developers not get away with, sorry, but relief from doing this? And if so, what percentage of the time have we done so?
I don't know the percentage from the time the law was enacted. I don't have that off the top of my head. Yes, there have been several developments that we have done that with, and they've demonstrated the costs were exceedingly high.
Okay,
Yes.
because that was my impression. I just want
Yes.
to clarify that. Correct.
Yes. And in some cases, the utility doesn't, really want the folks to do that. Not that they could still do it, but they'd prefer not to. So we've heard that as well.
Councilmember Holloman has a question.
Yeah, and I think just to talk to that, the times when we have granted it, it's also been like bridge to nowhere, right? Like if you're going to be in the middle of a block and you're the only one burying
Buried,
the utilities at a
exactly.
huge cost,
Correct.
we have to ask ourselves, is that a reasonable or like you said, is there some bigger program that we're going to have that says, okay, everybody
Bury 'em
bury
all.
your lines on this block or whatever, but it is kind of silly for one person to bear that.
So I think it came about before we had the hardening of the infrastructure by ComEd. And so with the continuous outages, there was an effort made by the council to put the onus on developers to then start, sort of process-wise, put these underground. But to that end, maybe it's now a solution that isn't happening to a problem that's been somewhat resolved. I can see my council member to the left has his hand up.
Do you have
as
a
well.
comment? But certainly however you'd like to proceed.
I agree that ComEd has done a good job of improving the delivery of electricity through an improvement of the infrastructure. There's also just an aesthetic to trying to get lines
Correct.
buried.
Right.
The problem is, of course, as Councilmember Holloman pointed out, if you're all alone in the middle of the block and nothing else is going to be developed for a decade or more, it's a heavy onus, and it's expensive. There's no doubt about that. So I'm not expressing an opinion either way, but I think if we ultimately want to get rid of as many overhead lines in Highland Park, we have to figure out what that's going to take. Not necessarily tonight, but it is going to have to be a participation of the city, the development community, and perhaps residents at some point.
So let's put that on the bulletin board for a future conversation, because I do think, to that end, that was a goal, but I think the execution hasn't really happened much, and it just sort of continually becomes yet another request for relief. Do you have a comment? Nope, okay.
Yeah. And so that's, burial of utility lines that are existing. I do want to just mention, though, I do think it's good policy to have new infrastructure where possible be underground. So if you have a new subdivision, it makes some sense, but then it's going to come above ground where it already exists and things like that. So yeah, that does need some policy look in, as you indicate, Mayor and Council. I understand that. And, you know, as Councilman Holloman had just pointed out, you know, the size of the parcel or development in question really matters as to the feasibility. It's a very good point. If you're redeveloping an entire block, it may be one thing, but when you're redeveloping in these infill style, which we see a lot of,
Right.
you know, you're going to take down a couple of poles, 3 poles at a high cost, and how does that really, what's the net benefit aesthetically as well as otherwise? So,
Right.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying, Councilmember Holloman in particular, and, you know, maybe it's something that we look at in terms of subdivisions more so than, thank you.
Okay, so to move on with the presentation and to look at the zoning and subdivision relief being requested. So in terms of zoning, we have a side step back for vertical construction provision that needs relief. And you see here, the graphic on the right is a depiction of the portion in yellow that would require relief. They're not stepping that back. That's different than the step back of the 15 feet that we talk about typically. This is a different provision. So I just wanted to make sure that council saw that, and the graphic is clear. And just to show you, to put it even in more context about, well, to what degree, there's another graphic. I'll just jump to that right now, that shows you the area of relief from a different perspective. So you can kind of see, here's the whole building, here's where the relief is. Okay.
Councilmember Stolberg would like to make a comment.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Joel already answered it, but I was just going to say to Councilmember Bloomberg's point, not for tonight, but we do get consistent requests to waive this requirement, and we know it's costly. But nonetheless, if this is what we want to do in the long term, I think we need to figure out a way that whether there's a benefit to the developer, whether that we get into some type of sharing with them, and it's particularly difficult for smaller buildings. So it may not just be something cut and dry, but if we keep granting relief and buildings go up and nothing goes up for another 40 years, we're going to be looking at these power lines. So I think we need to revisit this and determine how we can make it feasible and affordable for everybody if our ultimate goal is to remove them.
Sure, and that is an element of relief, as we talked about in the next item on this slide about the overhead power lines, requested not to bury overhead power lines. Article 23, which is the downtown design article, there's 3 areas of relief being requested: building entrance, glazing, and build-to zone. In terms of building entrance, 1 building entrance required along Park Avenue, none's provided. Glazing, you've got along Park Avenue. The glazing, which is the windows, the area of window, is required to be 70%, and the glazing provided is 41%. Just a note about that. When we changed the code to introduce the Central District residential overlay, staff did not look at this particular article as it relates to that. So that is something that we should do. Having said that, and meaning that, is it necessary to have the glazing quite at that level? That was intended for a ground floor commercial building. So that was an oversight, Mayor. So I would say that we'll take a look at it, what makes sense, but I would concede the point that 70% probably doesn't if you're going to allow a full residential first floor. So, but nonetheless, the code is what it is, and it is a required relief at this juncture. But we flag that as something like, okay, we need to look at that. Build-to zone along Park Avenue, they have a requirement to be within 0 to 10 feet, and they're proposing 30% of the building be there, not the required percentage. And so that was an idea to have these buildings in and around downtown set close to the sidewalk. Again, thinking more of the ground floor commercial type building with residential above. alleyway. A key part of the development, as you could see here with the graphic that provided by the applicant, is the alleyway. And the Traffic Management Committee met on June 2nd. There was neighbor concern with the proposed northbound one-way on Place. Applicant amended to indicate southbound one-way onto Park Avenue to address these concerns, and the Traffic Management Committee recommended the applicant's change to southbound. Okay. So we mentioned Article 23 modifications. I think unless anyone has questions, we can move forward past those. I did want to show as a graphic the glazing aspect of things, and so the applicant put forth this graphic to show the various glazing on the building at various levels. So the relief will be needed for that element of the code. Okay, mechanical equipment. So at the beginning of the presentation, I talked about the three conditions that the Plan and Design Commission had placed on this. And so one had to do with the alleyway and Public Works comments. This had to do with, hey, what about the visibility of mechanical equipment on the roof? And so the applicant did provide details to show that they would be able to have that screened by the parapet wall. And so they're locating or clustering these mechanical equipment pieces into more of a central location there and keeping it down low with that lower than that parapet wall. Building design, we've got dark metal roofing and cladding, matching color window framing, off-white, white brick, cast stone, cemented paneling, and limestone consistent with city's design guidelines for downtown. It's quite a handsome building. The PDC viewed it very favorably in terms of its styling and overall aesthetic. Landscaping, no relief needed. The vehicular use area and the foundation plantings exceed the minimum requirements. As you can see in the table below, green means good. The proposed are all exceeding the required. One element of relief, which we'll talk about later, is there was a heritage tree request that was made at the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that was approved. We'll talk about that in a minute. Lighting. Article 6 requirements are met. Applicant indicates that 3,000 Kelvin correlated color temperature will be used throughout, and 4 types of exterior features and 46 total outdoor lights will be included, and you can see some of the examples of the lighting. Foot candle requirements are met at the property line as required. Off-street parking, they exceed off-street parking. The 42 paces are required. They exceed that. They also provide an additional 5 tandem spaces. Applicant did verify that Article 8, which deals with, in part, parking geometrics, that those dimensions are met as well for the spaces provided. Open space project is not subject to a open space requirement per se because it's not in a residential zoning district, but nonetheless, the layout and design of this particular project does include considerable open space in that park-like feel, which matches really well with the Arts Center and just the whole feel of that part of downtown on Sheridan. So that was noted by the commission as well.
Councilmember Stone has a question.
Yeah, Joel, 2 questions. The lighting, I'm assuming you said that met the foot candle requirements. I'm assuming that meets the bug guidelines as well?
Yes, the Article 6
Okay.
requirements.
Great,
Yes,
for dark skies, great.
correct.
And then in terms of parking, is the parking garage, and this may be a question for the applicant, is the parking garage going to be wired for electric vehicle charging so owners can put in chargers later?
Defer to the applicant to talk more about that.
So
Would you like him to come up now?
We can ask when you come
Okay.
back.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, great. Okay, so the open space, nearly 40%. So now in terms of public benefit, the PDC did ask, the Plan and Design Commission did ask that the applicant consider additional public benefit during the public hearing process. The applicant did come back with a revised proposal, clarifying both the art installation as well as providing an additional element of public benefit, which had to do with the donation. So there's 3 parts that the applicants proposed. An art installation, they're going to create a concrete foundation pad for a display of a sculpture of a certain size. The 12-foot high red bronze sculpture by Mac Whitney, owned by the Art Center, is proposed at the location. But should that arrangement go away or the art be taken back, they will need to replace with some other piece of art for the life of the building. So that would be built into the agreements and the ordinance approvals. The donation proposed is $7,500 donation for downtown streetscape amenity projects such as chairs, tables, bikes, racks, things like that that we have planned in our program for capital investment. And lastly, streetscape. Applicants proposing to add curb and gutter between property and public alleyway, replace the public sidewalk along Sheridan Road and Park Avenue, reduce on-site impervious surface, and provide 5 guest parking spaces along the alleyway, more than the 2 that are required. I will note that this is not, this is the public benefit that was offered by the applicant. There are Public Works comments about other types of road work that they would like to see done as part of the project, as separate and apart from that. But certainly, if the council chose to make those part of any approval, if any, could be considered part of public benefit.
Mayor.
Yes. Go ahead.
So that goes to my question in terms of streetscape. I saw that staff was recommending that the developer be asked to improve Park Avenue. So the first question I have is that normally requested of a developer? Because clearly they're offering as part of the public benefit to take care of the curbs and the sidewalks and the alleyway, all of which is surrounding their property.
That's what I was going to ask.
Sorry,
We're
that's
under
my
a
phone.
tornado warning, I believe.
Yep.
That's why I texted you, Chief.
Should we,
No idea. I just did.
Do we have a general sense of, all right, my understanding is it's headed towards Evanston, so are we,
It's just generic, but
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
well, somebody's just did while we were sitting here.
Yes.
Okay, appreciate it, thanks.
should we open the windows
So-
so we can see what's happening?
I
Lou
can
was
see.
watching.
It's looking very.
It's green.
Sure.
All right, we'll press on and hopefully.
Okay. However you'd like to proceed. So, I'm
Let's
sorry, the
continue
question,
with
so
the moment.
I would direct the question to the Director of Public Works, Assistant City Manager,
That's
Ramesh
fine.
Ganapanaar.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Councilmember Lidoria, in the past 3 developments at least, so Albion 1, Albion 2, and even including the one, the Brayside, applicants have either paved the street or provided some kind of a monetary contribution
Toward the portion.
towards the portion just in front of their building,
And
right?
is that what the request from staff was?
That is correct. So
Not the public benefit being offered, but the request
Right.
that was earlier presented?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
number.
exactly, to like number 6.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
so that's what, just to comment, number 3, that's just a calculation, so that's not a, that calculation is used to use the capacity of the sanitary sewer.
Mm-hmm.
And so that they can provide that, that's not a
We
big
can
issue. I
deal
think,
with
but
that.
number 6 is kind of,
Because it sounds like they're doing 5. 4's under discussion, but we have our own issues on that. But it's number 6 that I
number
was
6.
wondering if that's out of the ordinary in terms of a request by staff, or if that's usually how, you're saying the last 3 have done it.
the last 3 have done it, and again, and we have worked with the developer to, like, sometimes they'll say that it's going to cost us this much, and we review those costs, and we can say, maybe there's a way that you can incorporate into our contract and get it somewhat, maybe some cheaper, or maybe just a monetary, if it's going to cost you 100,000, maybe just do some kind of a 50,000 monetary.
Okay.
So there's some wiggle room in terms of the negotiation, but it's not, again, city, whether staff, we all want the development to go through, so, it's not like it's a hard no from the staff.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Okay. That was a public benefit. So other board and commission considerations, I alluded to this earlier. The Zoning Board of Appeals in April considered and approved 4-0 the removal of one heritage tree located on the east boundary along Sheridan near the proposed circular drive entrance to the building from Sheridan. On May 4th, the Housing Commission recommended approval, 6-0, of the inclusionary housing plan for this development, noting that the proposed $150,000 payment in lieu was insufficient. The commission chose not to recommend denial based on that, but deferred to council on the ultimate payment in lieu. The applicant is proposing 2 of the 3.4 affordable units on site and is making a by right payment in lieu for the partial unit, 0.4 units of $50,000, which is in accordance with the code, and requests a payment in lieu for 1 inclusionary unit on not being on site, but rather being paid in lieu. And that is a discretionary approval of council.
Councilmember Holloman has a question.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that the 150,000 is set by the council, right? Is that our annual amount that we set every year is the in lieu?
Yes, the payment in lieu, but it's not set at 150 right now. It's 125 in the fee resolution, but it is a minimum for this type of consideration.
But it's set by the council, not by the housing.
That's correct.
So not by the housing commission. I just want to clarify that the housing commission doesn't set that price. That's up to us to decide what that is each year to go through the budgeting process.
Sure,
I just
and
wanted to
they
clarify.
provide
It
recommendations.
sounded like something like the commission was,
Okay with 150 when it's not there.
it's not their,
Yeah.
Well, they're just a recommending body here, much like the plan design. They're not, but in this position they had was that just they deemed it insufficient, but they didn't give you a number, unfortunately, and I understand that that's difficult, but that was their recommendation.
but why would they have to give a number? Why would they not just be required to pay what we have in our code?
Because the code technically says that the fee resolution number is the minimum for these discretionary types of payment in lieu. And in the past, we have only done the minimum. That is correct. Only, as a matter of fact, we've only ever done the minimum. That's
I
correct.
just want to make that point, like this would
Yep.
be a precedent-setting amount if we determined that 150 was appropriate. And, we choose every other bill.
It would be different from previous approvals. That is true. The commission looked at the rapidly changing environment with regard to prices and housing costs and thought that this was not sufficient. That's all I can say.
I'm sorry. I think
Yeah.
Councilmember Bloomberg and then Councilmember Littler and then Councilmember Stone.
I think it was appropriate for the Housing Commission to make a recommendation in favor of the development, and also to make a comment, as they have, recognizing that the amount of money is a minimum, also in light of the fact that the Housing Commission has completed the consideration at our direction as to whether the minimum should remain at 125 and is coming back with a much higher minimum in the future. So although that is not currently controlling, I think it's appropriate for a recommending body, as many of the commissions often do, to add comments with respect to their approval.
Councilmember Littler?
Completely agree. That's very helpful, and that's a great clarification because I wanted to say this is not necessarily precedent setting. It is a recommendation from a body that doesn't set it. But it is good, I think, for the council to hear this type of discussion from the Housing Commission so that we can see what trends are going on in terms of if there's going to be payment in lieu and if it's for 1 unit, how that type of number should be arrived at. So I'm very grateful to them for having gone through this exercise, suggesting this number, and I do think it's something we should take into account. However, it also makes me more comfortable, frankly, but for their recommendation, I'm always looking to see them try and include it as much as possible on site, and I don't like payment in lieu. But seeing the acceptances by this, I'm much more comfortable with it, too.
Thank you.
At the higher rate, by the way.
At the 150. So Councilmember Stone and then Councilmember Tapia.
Yeah, I agree with what's just been said. I think the higher amount of 150 makes sense, both given that the Housing Commission recommended it, that the Housing Commission is in the process of revisiting what that amount should be. We haven't done that in many years. And the unit that would have been required is a 3-bedroom unit, which is a larger unit. So I think 150 is appropriate.
Councilmember Tapia.
Yeah, philosophically, I like the fact that there is an option to do a payment in lieu for a certain percentage of the units. I always worry about it being extended beyond the physical, more physical pieces than we would want. But we have to make sure that the payment in lieu is commensurate to the actual cost of replacement. I did ask as part of preparation, what would be the cost of replacement based on various calculations? And the city manager indicated to me that the Housing Commission had pegged the number at $185,000. And that's why they felt that the 150 that was proposed was too low. So I have a concern about that, because I think that starts to go against the philosophy of payment in lieu, which we like to extend to give that flexibility to the developer up to a point. And I like the fact that we have some cash to have dispersed housing and take advantage, from our land trust to have that money. But when it's an potential underpayment for the replacement cost, I think that's a problem.
Councilmember Holloman?
Okay, without getting into a huge discussion about how that number is formulated, just a reminder that the payment in lieu is not supposed to be a replacement cost for an entire unit. It is supposed to pay for a portion of the unit, which is then leveraged with other funds and other agencies so that we get the most for our money. So we are not asking the developer to pay for the entire amount. We're asking them to make a contribution towards the production of a unit offsite. So it's not really fair to say the developer has to come up with the full cost of that, because we have other resources, or at least we have in the past, leveraged those amounts through grants and things like that to make offsite development possible. So again, this is a bigger topic of discussion about what we want that number to be, but I just want to be careful that it's not a one-for-one contribution.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Hang on one second, Councilmember. So first Director Fontaine, then Bloomberg, then Stolberg. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to point a clarification. So there's two things going on at the same time in this conversation. And we made this clear to the Housing Commission when they were considering this. This was an application under the current fee in lieu, which is $125, and what the applicant, Fulton Development, is proposing instead of that, which was higher based on their input. I had counseled them to keep that separate and apart from the work that we do as part of the budget process, which is to consider periodically, and this year we are, what the payment in lieu should be. We had a meeting about that subsequent to the meeting that this was considered, okay? And so they're just two different, they're running parallel, but they're two separate things, and we kept those separate. So there was a question about what they thought now about the future, the FY23. Yes, that is correct. They indicated a recommendation of 185 roughly, which is what the total government subsidy, not just the Housing Trust Fund monies, the total government subsidy needed to get a unit online based on our programmatic experience since 2018. That's about a recommendation to the council about payment in lieu for 2023. This item before you, they recommended that, they recommended the entire project, but they said that they thought the 150 was insufficient. They said nothing else about that, beyond that. Okay, I just want to be clear about that.
Tony.
And both are just recommendations. Of course, the council makes the final call.
So I think it's important to understand this application is being made under the current code, which has $125,000 as a minimum. The developer is proposing to pay $150,000, which exceeds that, as an offer to try to ameliorate the issues that the Housing Commission may have expressed at the time. But very clearly, the language does not specify that the amount is supposed to be a subsidy. The language states that the amount of money paid in lieu is supposed to create an equal or greater opportunity for a unit to be built off-site. Whether that's by subsidy or paying outrightly, this council has never resolved and kept the language as it is. I will express my opinion at the appropriate time about this particular property and the proposals, but that's the language in the ordinance.
Mayor, we will be coming forward with a briefing to council with that recommendation from the Housing Commission and staff's perspective on the matter as well at a future council committee of the whole.
Thanks. Councilmember Stolberg also wanted to add something.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Sorry, I have the tornado sirens going off. Couple things. I agree wholeheartedly with Councilperson Holloman. And rarely, but Councilmember Bloomberg and I do disagree on this a little bit. I do believe that this is not supposed to be a subsidy amount or a cost for a full unit coming on board. And I think as we sit down and reevaluate this, I would share my opinions as to how that money can be used for off-site housing or scattered site housing, as we call it, that's paid into the trust fund. I also agree that the developer is making an effort here. While I appreciate the recommendation, the amount is a minimum and it is a suggestion, and I think the developer is offering to pay more. So I'm actually okay with it.
Thank you. Ramesh, what does this mean? Like tornado touchdown or?
Down is like south of us is what I just got the message from our fire chief. It's to the south right now.
How far?
It's Evanston, they're saying.
All right, so we can wrap this up.
Yeah.
All right. Do you guys have anything you want to say? Do we need to hear from you? Do we need to hear from you?
Unless you have specific questions, I think.
Do we have specific questions?
I have
Or we?
two.
Okay, Councilmember Stone has two.
Always. Quick questions.
Okay, thank you.
no
Please state
answer.
your name for the record.
My name is Elliot Wixer. I represent Fulton Developer, and my office is in Northbrook, Illinois. Just one short thing. I know there's a tornado. It's awesome to be here in person. So
Good to
I
see
just-
you.
Sirens are going off. so we should
Secondly,
wrap
I
this
just
up.
want to, I
Right.
think for purposes of clarification on the street, the repaving, and on the repaving of the alley, I think that's a big issue for this developer. It's a lot of money, and I think it's not commensurate, that fee, the cost is not commensurate with what this development is, and I think in terms of its 20 units, and I think we're looking at in excess of, $350,000 to repave the alley in the public way. So if there's a different additional public benefit that the city council wants to consider in addition to what we've already proposed, we would be willing to do that.
Okay, Great.
That's it.
thank you. Councilmember Stone, what are your questions?
Yeah, don't leave. I've got two quick questions.
Elliot, we need you back here.
Stay back.
Or Mark, or,
Somebody.
yeah.
Two quick questions. Is the parking lot going to have wiring for electric vehicle charging?
The underground garage.
Right.
We're
The
trying to
underground garage.
prospectively anticipate electric vehicles, so one question was, would you have pre-wired it?
Prospectively, Highland Park has more electric vehicles
Okay.
registered than any community in the state.
Go team.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good to see you as well in person.
Hi, good to
Hi.
see you. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Mark Mueller. I'm president of Fulton Developers.
Thank you.
I had a brief presentation, but I can just go directly to the question as well.
I think that will
Yeah,
get us
Mark,
where we need.
Mayor, just on the weather-wise, we are, right now, the Cook County is the one that are getting the tornado warning. For us, they have just issued severe thunderstorms. for
Okay,
us.
so we're not under the
Yep.
tornado warning.
Yeah.
So if we are, you're going to wave your arms,
I
right?
will.
Yeah, thanks.
I'll be running first.
Okay.
So
wiring, yeah.
this would be our fifth or sixth multifamily project in Highland Park. And we've done the electric vehicles a little bit different on every project. And on the last project, One Highland Park, what we ended up doing is we ended up stabbing first and second floor electrical meters, a conduit from the unit, all the way down to the garage.
Oh, wow.
And that way, it's just like a house. We just have a larger panel in the units. If they need 125, we put 200. So now they get the electricity directly from their own meter.
Brilliant.
And then for the third and fourth floor units, we just have spare meters. So whoever needs electricity would get another meter. And by doing that, we avoided using ChargePoint, all the other companies that we worked in the past, because we realized that they don't work well with the Teslas. When some of our residents go out of town, they need to have someone to charge, to slide a credit card, to pay the homeowners association. So by doing it this way, I don't know if it's very common, but we found a solution that doesn't involve getting the homeowners association and having someone come every month to charge their vehicles.
That's a great idea. Are you going to do something similar here?
Yes, it's very simple. We just need to run a pipe when we are framing from the unit to the garage.
Right. It's very simple when you do it, going back later, not so simple. So
We
thank
can't-
you.
It's very easy
Thank you for doing that.
during construction.
That's right.
The other question I have is regarding recycling. Is there room in the trash rooms? I don't know if you have trash rooms or trash chutes, but is there room for recycling? And do you also plan to have room for composting in those rooms?
The way we've done it in the past, and I think we plan to do that here, is we have two chutes. One chute for regular garbage, one chute for recycling, and there's two dumpsters on the lower level. We haven't thought about the compost, and I'm concerned about what grows inside the building. That's an issue on some people's homes, and I'm not sure how that would happen from insects and things that start growing sometimes when you're doing that inside a common area in a building.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Michelle, you had your hand up? No? Okay. So with that, I'm seeking approval of drafting documents for final decision-making on item 13?
Do we want,
Am I there, Steve, or not quite?
do we want to talk about the alley? We haven't really resolved that.
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
If that's where the council, that is where you could be.
Do we want to talk about the alley?
Well,
Go ahead.
he
We haven't-
basically requested that they not
Be held
held
to.
to do the alley in the
To
street,
pave it.
right? So I think that is a conversation we should probably have.
I agree. Thoughts on the alley?
How common is it to require those types of things?
Paving versus the directional change, right?
Right.
So, Councilmember Holloman, yeah, so as I mentioned before, like for the last 3 developments, we did require the developers to repave in front of their particular development, whatever. In this case, the southbound they're just changing the direction. Right now, it's a 2-way alley. They're requesting it 1-way southbound. So, and then they're adding curb and gutter. What we are saying is like, because of the movements there being downtown, and Albion just repaved Green Bay, and they're going to repave Elm once they're done, Albion 2. So we've been consistent that asking the developers to repave once they're done with the construction. Now, they mentioned $300,000. Again, we did ask them to submit us because that seems a little too high from our perspective, estimation to repave Park Avenue and the alleyway. So if council is so inclined, we can take a look at it and see what reasonable, monetary, sometimes it could be just a monetary. They don't have to pay the whole thing. Like Brayside development, remember they just said that they're going to pay $30,000, and we took that and we're going to pay next year. St. John's, we're going to pave in front of that.
Right,
So
but
that option is there too.
That was going to be my question. Can we help with that? Because we're going to, again, doing one chunk of the street
Right.
doesn't make sense. And can we just take a fee in lieu, basically, for the cost of their portion and then do the whole street,
That's
right? Because we don't want them paving if we're redoing sewers and
That's
whatever.
correct.
So,
Okay, so we would need an estimate, though.
Yeah, so like what we can do, if the council is so inclined, we can meet with them, take their proposal, take their estimate, and then we're gonna see how much, if city does it, what it's gonna cost, and what the delta is, and then maybe we can, if you're okay with it, then you can say it's 50%, of that cost.
Councilman Littleworth?
So along those lines, I really appreciate the information. In the past, these other developers, we have required them to do that portion of the road. But in light of what seems like a very high cost to do this alley in addition to it, especially since that alley really, it'll be very nice to have it improved upon. But with those kinds of costs, I think we should be a little bit more flexible.
Right.
Because it sounds like, they're kind of getting double duty here.
Right, exactly. I agree, and that's why I said, like, once we get a first-hand look at how their estimate is developed, and then we can say that if CTR done it, it will cost, let's say, 150, then we can come back to the council and say, what's the reasonable percentage contribution.
so
Wait, we have Bloomberg, Stone, and Holloman.
I think along the lines of what Councilmember Holloman suggested is something we do occasionally for other private residents, which is if you want a street repaved, it's a private street, you can work with the city, through the city's contractors to pay for materials and labor to have the street paved at the much more favorable bulk rate that the city gets when they hire during the summer, a contractor to pave a bunch of streets. So that may be a solution for this.
Right, and the engineering is done by us, the construction management is done by the city, so all those will be part of the package, that is correct. So those are all the savings.
That will take
on
some of the
their-
burden off of the developer.
So it's just direct costs then, right? I mean,
Right.
direct
Literally
costs.
material.
50%.
Councilmember Stone and then Councilmember Holloman.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, especially given that this alley is the access to the development. So there'll be a benefit to the residents of this building for repaving as well. Are we able to continue that negotiation and figure out those numbers after we've done the drafting of documents?
The applicant
I think the
appears to be
applicant has-
wanting to be heard, but this is certainly part of a negotiation we can do and come back with documents for your, obviously, the documents for your final approval, and they could be changed by council if that was deemed necessary or desirable.
And that's what we did, Mayor, with that Brayside, same scenario, they said that, hey, it's too expensive. We looked at their proposal, they said 90,000, we said, I think it's 60,000, and then we said, okay, how about 30,000? And that's how we were able to negotiate a price, and then we plan to add it to our contract, so.
Councilmember Holloman, do you want to precede the applicant, or do you want to?
I was just going to say that we can still, I was just going to ask if we can still approve this pending a negotiation on, so that we're not holding up this.
Directing
Because
staff.
all you're doing is directing.
Right.
You have to
Yes.
first, and it sounds like it, but you have to first reach a threshold decision of, do you like the plan?
Right.
Right.
And then make the
So,
direction.
yeah, okay.
If I may, I had some pictures. We've been trying to work with city engineers for many months now. The alley is in very good shape, and I have pictures to show that.
Okay.
So that's why we thought we were improving the alley by putting curb, gutter, landscaping. In regards to taking care of 2 blocks of Park Avenue, I can show a picture. It's in very bad shape before we put a shovel in the ground. The city, if we break something, the city has guarantee deposits, there's bonds, there's fiscal impact fees, which are going to be over $200,000 for this project, which the city can use to offset possible expenses incurred by a new development. So we really felt that that this was a large burden on a 20-unit project for us to try to fix 2 blocks of the city that are not even adjacent to our project.
Director Fontaine has
Can I just
something.
interject for a minute?
Yes.
Just want to make mention, clarification point. Impact fees, the city does not collect impact fees for itself. It does so on behalf of other taxing entities.
Right.
What Ramesh is talking about, we don't get any of those impact fees.
They go to the schools in the Park District. Councilmember Holloman.
When is St. John's on the schedule to be repaved with the big project? Is it in that section too?
Next year, we're going to do the break by the Brayside Station. Oh, no, not this
St.
thing.
John's.
Oh, no, this
Yeah,
one is
St.
not.
John's down by
We're not
Brayside.
doing any,
Not-
we have no plans.
No plans,
It's
right.
not on the schedule at all, on our SIP. We have a 10-year SIP. Paving St. John's in that section
St.
is not on there.
Come on,
That is
Raj.
not right. Not on that section is not there, but Park Avenue, as Mark mentioned, yeah, Park Avenue, if there is now that we have that SMART program, we're going to take a look at it, and it could be qualified under the SMART program,
The
which
whole
will be
thing.
much cheaper than the entire repaving.
I mean, my sense is that we are substantially there, and so maybe if we move to draft, documents for our final approval within that time period, you all can kind of get your 10-year SIP plan coordinated with these guys and see where we are in terms of
Perfect.
likely costs versus estimated costs.
Absolutely, Mary.
We
That's doable.
received the cost from the city engineers, and it was $230,000 just for Park Avenue, and that didn't take into account the alley. I just wanted to briefly show you those images.
Sure.
Well, these were some other projects that you have approved
Right.
15 years ago.
Yeah.
In this one, you approved it 5 years ago. This one was about 3 years ago on Laurel. This is the one we just finished, and we have 19 residents that are moving in, and we're finishing the last unit. I don't want to repeat everything that has been said. We're reducing the impervious surface. We are adding 40 new trees to the site, which is right now almost a parking lot. Reducing the impervious surface by 10,000 square feet based on the current conditions of the site. We've worked with the neighbors. We sent letters to 85 homeowners. We've got calls. They met at our office. We had presentations before we had the first public hearing. We receive calls on a weekly basis from neighbors. We have addressed most of their concerns. We're creating a park on the west side of the building. We're creating all 4 sides of the building, not like a back facade. All of them have the same materials. We're trying to do a nice quality development in a project that we're entitled to do 62 market rate units. We're only doing 20.
Right.
Adding more parking. So we're trying to put an effort on doing a beautiful project for our beautiful community.
Right.
And this road seems to be like a big hurdle at this point. Creating outdoor spaces. We have, together with Kyle, we've designed this project through COVID. So we realize how much people appreciate outdoor space. Most of the units have outdoor terraces that are about 250 square feet. And in regards to the other projects which Ramesh was mentioning, they are larger projects. They need a large relief. We are not asking here for a special use. We are pretty much building what we can do by right. The only thing we need is those little tips on the corners for relief. So we're not asking for a casino, for 5 more stories. We're building within what we're entitled to do within the zoning. In regards to this is the current condition of Park Avenue today. So we didn't cause this, and we feel that for us to repave 2 blocks of the street is not a just burden to put on a new development, which is outside of our project. And we have increased the public benefit. We had 3-4 meetings with the Plan and Design Commission, and we have done projects for almost 20 years in this town. I know that this is something new, but we never had to pay any fees for repavement, and this is not something we had in the budget, and it's hard for us to consider. And this is the public alley, and we're going to add a curb and a gutter and landscaping. It's in great shape. So for us to have to repave it just because, it doesn't seem right, and that's why I wanted to share those pictures.
Appreciate you sharing those photos.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so where are we in terms of motion to draft moving forward? Councilmember Holloman?
I think the pictures are very telling, though, and I'm not inclined to assess the fees for the 2 blocks, at such an exorbitant amount. So I would be willing to move to approve the drafting of documents without the requirement to pay for repaving and to repave the alley, but to preserve what the existing alley is.
Second.
Where are you on the Park Avenue piece of things?
No paving, because that's going to be on the schedule.
Right.
Right.
No, I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
So, okay.
That was not part of it.
Was that a second?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And you need something else?
Yeah, a question on that. So if there's any, Ramesh, if there's any damage to the alley or further damage to either the streets, Park, or Sheridan from the construction, that's something that we recoup from the developer for repairing?
There's a bond.
Right.
wanted to-
Typically we don't go to that extra length because you gotta test it before the development and then you gotta test it after the development for us to do that. In this case, because typically I would say that in this case they're gonna use Sheridan Road for most of the truck traffic before they come into the Park Avenue. So that's an undue burden on the staff for us to do the measurement twice. If the council is in favor of the way that developer proposed, we'll add the Park Avenue and St. John's and the alley as part of our, we do our pavement testing every 5 years. Whenever that comes up, absolutely. Or as I said before, other program is, like the alleyway, once we look at the results, maybe that, again, we do have the SMART program where we just take off an inch, that is something that we can also consider for the street down the road. So.
Right.
Let me just add,
Okay.
yeah. I appreciate the reduction, there's Mark, the reduction in impervious surface. Thank you for that. And that you've added bike parking and underground parking for this building. I think that those are very good additions. So I appreciate that.
Great, thanks. Councilmember Bloomberg and then Councilmember Holloman.
Thank you. It's nice to see you back here. You have a good history, I think, in the city, at least in my experience, of high-quality developments that have stood the test of time. You've made yourself available when problems occur to work with staff or resident concerns. I've watched you at the Plan Commission when I was liaison there, and your interaction with residents who expressed concerns about developments that have been successful and took their concerns into account. So I'm very pleased at your history, and I think a lot of that carries into this proposal. With respect to the inclusionary zoning element, I realize you've been asked to pay a payment in lieu that's greater than the minimum, and that is unusual. I would approve that, and I'm glad that the motion is including that, only in the sense that you did, at your option, build 20 units instead of 62 units. So that necessarily reduced the number of inclusionary units that might have been insisted upon in the development. And I understand the need to not build all of the units on site with the development that you're actually doing. I think you, by paying a somewhat moderate increase in the minimum that would normally be required, you've made an effort to make up for that difference. And under those circumstances, I would be comfortable approving this entire development.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Holloman?
Just want to say thank you. It's a beautiful development. We're lucky to have it. And we do have a truck fee these days. Remember how we implemented that, the truck fee? So the road, like, are you shushing me, Ramesh?
No, I was going to say, no, we have not, that truck impact fee, we have not.
You have not impact, okay. All right, well, we were supposed to.
For this development, it's
whatever.
very minimal.
We have 95% operating.
Yeah.
All right, anyway, I think it's great.
I agree. Thank you. Thank you for bringing this to us. Thank you for the thoughtfulness that went behind the design, and appreciate all the unique elements that you've incorporated into this. And I call the one on the top that faces east. Just want to say we have a motion, we have a second with excluding the paving requirement. So with that, will the clerk call the vote?
Councilmember Tapia?
Aye.
Councilmember Stolberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Stone?
Aye.
Councilmember Bloomberg?
Aye.
Councilmember Holloman?
Aye.
Councilmember Littlewer?
Aye.
Mayor Rotering?
Aye. 7 ayes, no nays. And so we will see you for the final approval. And thank you again for explaining to us your point of view. Appreciate it.
Those
Thank you.
documents will be under development and should be back before the council, either next meeting, or the July 13th meeting.
Great. Thank you. Is there any business from the council? I believe there's business from city staff regarding summer fun in the city and a few other things.
Yes, Mayor, Amanda's going to give us, Communications Manager, Civitello, exciting news, summer bash events.
Well, thank you, Director Canaparetti, Mayor and Council, for the opportunity to tell you about some of the fun things we have in store this summer with hopefully better weather. So we can't wait to see the community come together at the Taste of Highland Park on June 24th and 25th, as well as our Independence Day celebrations on July 4th. So savor the flavors of summer with special dishes from Highland Park chefs, coupled with exceptional music at the Taste of Highland Park at The Lot, located at 523 Central at the intersection of Central and St. John's. The Lot is the city's dynamic new alfresco dining and entertainment space. The taste kicks off on Friday, June 24th at 5 p.m. with music from Dan Whitaker and Chicago's favorite high-energy country rockers, Davidson County Band, before headliners, the Freddie Jones Band, take the stage at 8:30 p.m. On Saturday, June 25th, all the fun begins at noon with performances from Highland Park's own Jeff Libman and the Jujus, Chicagoland Rockers Saturday June Band, top guitarist Mike Danger performing with the Tropics, and the Midwest premier Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons tribute band, the Four C-Notes, who you might remember from singing holiday tunes with us at Fort Clinton Square. The nation's #1 yacht rock band, Yachtly Crew, will play all your favorite soft rock hits from the 70s and 80s at 8:30 p.m. So we are thrilled to see so many Highland Park restaurants preparing a wide variety of dishes for you to enjoy. Many thanks to BWB Shakes, Bellaroo Catering, Judy's Pizza, Madame Zuzu's Tea House, Michael's Grill and Salad Bar, Pixka, Poke Burrito, which is coming soon to downtown Highland Park, Ravinia Brewing Company, Sally's Nuts, Tamales, and Uncle Tanous. Visit enjoyhighlandpark.com/taste to learn more about the Taste of Highland Park and all the fun events we have planned for the first season of The Lot. Events at the lot are presented by the City of Highland Park and the Downtown Highland Park Alliance with the generous support of the Porsche Audi Exchange, Baird & Warner, Freedom Home Care, Muller Subaru Volkswagen, Highland Park Bank and Trust, Scott Byron and Company, First Bank of Highland Park, Gregory Hyundai Genesis, Arbor Terrace of Highland Park, Freshie, Studio 41, Highland Park Community Foundation, and Sunset Foods. And we are so grateful to all of our sponsors for their investment in our community. In addition, the City of Highland Park and the Park District of Highland Park are excited to host the upcoming 4th of July parade and celebration. The Highland Park Parade will begin at 10 a.m., followed by Fourth Fest in Sunset Park, the Bitter Jester Music Festival at Walters Field, and fireworks beginning at 9:30 p.m. For a full schedule of the day's events, check your issue of the Highlander, which should arrive in your mailbox soon, or visit cityhpil.com/July 4th. As a reminder, our administrative offices will be closed and refuse collection will be delayed by 1 day due to the holiday.
Excellent. And thank you for the Weekender. What an amazing job that is every single Friday. It's just amazing. It's like all you want to do is just go down the whole thing and check out all the stores and buy all the food. And it just, I know how much work it is. So thank you for putting it together.
There's so many good things to talk about.
Exactly. Great. Thank you. With that, I'm seeking a motion to adjourn this meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Do we want to stick around for Committee of the Whole, or do we want to hit the road? What do you think, Chief? Out? All right. Can we do that, Steve, if we posted a Committee of the Whole agenda? How do we not hold that meeting?
Actually, Mayor, it's except the closed session, there's
You
no.
have a closed session. Okay.
Yeah, so how do we postpone that meeting?
Okay.
We have approval of the minutes of the regular.
Right. So there is a closed session item. I think perhaps the city manager was hoping to get direction. I'm sure she can.
The chief wants us to go home. He's like, the weather has settled, and he wants us out of here.
And I'm sure she can get direction from you in another way. There is no need to hold a meeting that has been posted, that we will indicate that the meeting has been canceled.
Okay, so we'll just talk about this next time.
That's correct. Absolutely.
All right, cheers, team. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Look at us being so
Thank you.
cool during a tornado. I didn't think you had